Yesterday I saw James Gunn's brand new Superman movie, but does it live up to the expectations? Let's find out. What's up guys, welcome to the channel. I'm Harry Styles, and this is the first video that I'm actually uploading on this channel, so hopefully it turns out alright and you guys can like, comment, and subscribe to help a growing channel out that is very much in need of subscribers. So when it comes to Superman, I would consider myself a very casual fan of the character and the lore behind everything. I watched a lot of Superman movies for the first time leading up to this thing, where I'd only seen the Christopher Reeve very first one, and then all the Henry Cavill appearances as Superman. With Henry Cavill, I really liked his approach to Superman, and honestly, I am a fan of Man of Steel. Not as much Batman v Superman, but I really liked his approach, and I like Zack Snyder's direction, but I think it was about time that we had to get a fresh take. The DCEU was falling, and we needed to get something original and fresh, and that is exactly what we got here. One of the first big pieces that we got for this was that James Gunn was going to direct it after he became the head of the new DC universe, but then after that it was announced that David Corenswet would be playing Superman, replacing Henry Cavill, and honestly I really liked his portrayal. I thought that he did a very nice job of blending Superman and Clark Kent with the sheepish, very down-to-earth Clark Kent, and then Superman who's still down-to-earth, but the polar opposite of Clark Kent. He perfectly embodied who Superman is, a symbol of hope and everything. So David Corenswet was absolutely fantastic, and so was the rest of the cast. They got the casting down to perfection on every single role. Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane was a really good choice. Personally, when that casting was going around, I was team Emma Mackey, but now seeing Rachel Brosnahan, I thought she was fantastic. There was a lot of chemistry with her and David Corenswet that I felt was a little lacking in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, so I really like the dynamics they had with Clark and Lois here. And then Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. No bias with the first name or anything, but Nicholas Hoult was fantastic as Lex Luthor. This was by far the most hateable and easy to root against Lex Luthor we've gotten, because Gene Hackman had the classic comedic, wacky version of Lex Luthor. Jesse Eisenberg was his own version of Lex Luthor, as you can say. He wasn't bad though. But Nicholas Hoult played just easily the most despicable version we've ever seen, where you are just waiting for him to just get absolutely obliterated. You just, the whole movie, from the first moment Lex Luthor walks in, you want him defeated and dead. I hope he dies. And I just feel like that's something that James Gunn is very good at when it comes to casting, because every movie that James Gunn has helmed, he got the acting and just the casting perfect. Guardians of the Galaxy, everyone was perfect. The Suicide Squad, again, everyone was just very good in that movie, so I think it's just something that James Gunn has a knack for and is very good at. And that's another thing that he adds to this film. He adds his own visual flavor, where whenever you watch a James Gunn movie, you can easily tell that it is a James Gunn movie. Guardians of the Galaxy feels like a James Gunn movie inside of the MCU, and Superman feels like it will be a James Gunn movie inside the DCU as things start to move forward. He brings every level of comic book, cartoony, zany, whatever feelings you would want out of a wackier Superman movie. He absolutely delivers on all of that, while also really retaining that emotional core that we want in a Superman film, because that's who Superman is. He is the symbol of hope and just a beacon for humanity, and that's exactly what this movie gave, and what James Gunn was able to throw in here in almost every scene. Every character is able, at their core, is able to show that too, where Superman is the literal symbol of hope, and you definitely feel that. And I think David Corenswet is a huge part in that, but I think James Gunn was also very much able to write all of that in. Lois Lane, who I think we could have seen a little bit more of in the movie, you see it in her. And Lex Luthor, perfect as the polar opposite of Superman. Just probably, in my opinion, I haven't seen Justice League Unlimited or any of those TV shows before, but from what I have seen on the big screen, I think this was the best version of Superman versus Lex Luthor, and just how they're two polar opposite characters, and the drive to save humanity and Lex Luthor's selfishness and the drive for himself. I think they really did a good job at capturing all of that. But the real scene stealer in this film was Krypto, the super dog. Every single scene with Krypto, I had a smile on my face. I mean, I had a smile on my face throughout this entire movie. It was so much fun to watch. But Krypto was so awesome. He might get me to start investing in crypto. That was bad. I am so sorry to everyone watching this video.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
But Krypto, from his attacks, which were absolutely hilarious, and just seeing a dog with a cape, just going insane, being Superman but a dog, I love him. But yeah, every time Krypto was in the action, it was awesome. And really just every single scene in this movie had great action. Whether it was that little kaiju fight at the beginning, anything with Ultraman or Lex Luthor, everything was just so good with it. And it's nice seeing, with all the different characters they had in here, with powers, Green Lantern, Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl, all of them like just have different fighting styles, where the Green Lantern ring and Mr. Terrific's gadgets, you just see so many different styles of fighting, and it's unique in each scene, which it just adds like a fresh layer to all of it, and that's just kind of how you feel for all of it. This is a very fresh take on Superman that has its own voice and style, and that's exactly what I wanted this movie to be. I didn't want it to feel like a corporate product of Superman to set up the DCU. I wanted it to be James Gunn's vision of a Superman movie to really kick things off. And honestly, I think we've gotten really lucky with all the Superman like movies to have that kind of feel, because the first two Superman movies with Christopher Reeve, you can very much sense Richard Donner's vision, at least in the Donner cut, because Superman 2 had some drama, but you can feel Richard Donner's scale. He wanted that Shakespearean flair to those original Superman movies. We'll skip 3 and 4, but Zack Snyder, whether you love him, whether you hate him, whether you worship him like a god on Twitter, Zack Snyder had his own direction and his own vision, which I thought was pretty cool, and James Gunn has done the exact same thing, not making it a bland corporate product, but a very strong Superman movie. Now, moving into some negatives for this movie, because it isn't perfect, and we couldn't ask for it to be perfect. I know all of our expectations were super high for this movie, but it was bound to have some flaws. One of them being that it has a little too much going on. It was one of my fears going into this, and I feel like that kind of stayed after the credits rolled. There's a lot going on here. You have Lex Luthor's plot, you have the Superman political drama going on in the film, you have the great Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, you have that team going on. I feel like they were setting up a lot of things, but also it felt a little underdeveloped in some parts, where I thought some side characters could have had a little more screen time. Like Superman's adopted parents, the Kents. I feel like what they do with them is well done in this film, and you can feel emotion every time they're on screen, but I feel like there were moments that could have had a little more oomph to it, more emotion behind it if they were developed a little more in the film as well. And with Guy Gardner and characters like that, we know they're going to be developed later on, so this is more just our first dose of them, so I don't fault the movie as much for that. But there were other parts of this that I feel like could have been explored a little bit more, and that's kind of what the movie set itself up for, with a slight trap, where it didn't want to do another origin story, which I totally get that. Where we've seen Superman's origin story in movies and TV shows so many times, where I understand James Gunn not wanting to take the origin story route. In a sense, it very much works, but I feel like other points of the movie, it's relying a little too much on prior knowledge, to where some things just feel a little bit undercooked. And then I also think the cartoonish, very comic booky feel of this film is kind of a double-edged sword, where 95% of the time I was super on board and loved it, but then there were other points of it where I'm thinking it's going a little too episodic, or a little too in that realm, where moments that will feel truly epic, like Christopher Reeve's very first Superman movie, that whole movie feels like a Shakespearean drama with Superman, with just the scope of it and how epic and in touch that movie was. Not saying this movie wasn't, but because of how much it leaned into that cartoon feel, it's kind of just a double-edged sword where you lose a little bit of that, but not to say it doesn't have its huge moments. There are so many moments in this movie that you're smiling so much. You're really feeling what some people who didn't like Man of Steel have been lacking in Superman movies, really since Christopher Reeve. So it's very nice to see a Superman movie really do all of that. And then this is more of a nitpicky, like, film bro-esque complaint, but I did think the lighting in this movie was very poor in only a few scenes. It's not as bad as some other movies we've seen recently. I think this movie looks phenomenal as a whole, but the lighting was a little too bright or just too all over the screen, where if we're gonna hate on Wicked for months for its lighting, I feel like it's a little bit warranted for this movie too. So it's nitpicky, it's not a big deal. Most of this movie looks fantastic, but that is a slight complaint I do have with this film. Regardless, I think this movie was an insanely fun watch. I was having so much fun in the movie theater with this thing, and I'm definitely planning on seeing this movie again, whether it's in theaters or day one buy on 4K. Now, before I get into my final thoughts, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. This is a growing channel, and we are just starting out, so I would very much appreciate if I could earn your subscriptions, and I would also like to talk about a little bit what I'm going to do in the future for the next couple weeks, where coming soon, I'm going to do a ranking of all the theatrical Superman movies, and then a James Gunn directorial ranking, and then I'll get into future releases like Eddington, Fantastic Four, all that stuff. So I just wanted to let you guys know what is coming up. James Gunn's take on Superman brings a fresh, original voice to the character that perfectly resembles the symbol of hope. With perfect casting, an emotional backing, and Krypto the Superdog, fans of Superman are in for something special. My final score for this movie is going to be an 86%. So once again, thank you all for watching this review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Tune in later for some more reviews, rankings, and just special videos I'm going to do related to cinema, because that's what this channel is going to be about. So once again, thank you all, and peace out.